On this episode, we travel to Mackinaw City, Michigan for the Labor Day Bridge Walk. Then we talk with an advocate in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. We visit a neighborhood that needs sidewalks in Knoxville, Tennessee. Tuscaloosa, Alabama needs more crosswalks. We look at a dangerous intersection in Grand Island, Nebraska. We talk about closing the gaps in the East Coast Greenway. Finally, we look at the role of the pedestrian and bicycle professional. Stay tuned. We're in Mackinaw City, Michigan, talking with Jim Muma, who's with Mackinaw Walkers Volkssport Club. What is a Volkssport Club?
That's a sport of walking. It's for exercise. We have no cause. It's just for individual people to exercise.
And what does your club do?
We set up walks throughout Michigan. We have 8 walks, primarily in the Straits of Mackinac area, but also Frankenmuth at Greenfield Village and Charlotte, Michigan.
And one of your walks has gotten an honor in the past. Which walk is that?
The walk at Mackinac Island was voted the best walk in the country for 2 years.
And there are an awful lot of people here today. What's been going on in Mackinaw City?
Oh, there's a lot of activity. Of course, it's all centered around the bridge walk. This is the 49th year that the Michigan has sponsored the Mackinac Bridge Walk. And I believe there's about 55,000 walkers today.
And what are all these walkers doing?
It's all for exercise. The people get up early in the morning and they walk between 7 and 11, and it's about a 2-hour walk across the bridge. It's about a 5-mile walk.
Now, are there clubs like yours elsewhere in the country?
Yes, the American Volkssport Association, AVA, they sponsor clubs throughout the country. There are approximately 1,000 clubs and about 3,000 walking events across the country.
We're in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, talking with James Moore. What is your involvement with bicycle and ped issues at the state level here in Mississippi?
At the state level, I'm president of Bike Walk Mississippi, and that's a small group that's trying to learn how to be advocates on the local level to make our communities more pedestrian and cycling friendly.
What sort of issues have you been working with that organization?
One thing that we have done most recently is gotten a share the road license plate passed through our legislature, and we hope that the funding from that will allow us to hire a full-time state executive director for our group.
And coast of Mississippi is one of the places that was devastated by storms in the last couple of years. What opportunities does that present for Mississippi?
Tremendous opportunities. For 2 reasons. One is there's literally a blank slate as far as the infrastructure goes down on the coastal communities where everything was destroyed and wiped away. So we have an opportunity to go back now and rebuild things right from the very beginning. And the second thing that's really positive is that our governor brought together a charrette of community design and planners from across the country and some from across the world to meet with the groups to be a part of this planning process. So there's a lot of thought that's going into this before we simply replicate mistakes of the past.
And as replacement infrastructure goes in, what are some of the most critical things that have to happen?
Well, obviously we want it to be bike and ped friendly, especially the bridges that cross the bays. We want the future economy of the Mississippi Gulf Coast will likely be tourism. The casinos there have played a big part, but we don't want to lose that small coastal community feel. And that's very much a pedestrian outdoor type atmosphere that those communities are going after.
Now, at the national level, what's your involvement been?
I've had the pleasure over the last 4 years of attending the Bike Summit in Washington, D.C. by the League of American Cyclists. And I've learned a lot about what it takes to make a pedestrian-friendly community. I've also had some success lobbying my congressman for some local money for my own community to build a bikeway and a pedestrian path. I'm also a member of the Thunderhead Alliance, and the Thunderhead has done a lot for our state organization, just being a resource and telling us how to best grow our advocacy group and work on the local level.
And at the local level in your town, what's been your involvement there?
Well, I grew up in the community or the town of Petal, Mississippi, petal like a flower. And as a kid, I enjoyed riding my bike to school, but I had to be very creative in getting to school, actually going through the woods in some cases because the streets were not bike friendly. Petal is a town of 264 streets and 4 sidewalks. And I decided that I'd like to change that, so I ran for alderman. And that was my platform, was making Petal pedestrian and bike friendly. And one of the first things that we were able to accomplish with our new administration was pass an ordinance that requires any new street that's built in our city or any new subdivision streets require sidewalks.
Over time, that'll have an impact as new stuff is built. What are you able to do with the existing infrastructure?
Well, that was a big problem because we are such a built-out city already. And so we issued $5 million worth of bonds, and over $1 million of that will go to sidewalk construction being done by our own street department. We have purchased sidewalk forms. We've learned and taught the men how to build sidewalks. So we're not having to contract everything out, causing the cost to escalate. We're able to do it for the cost of materials and the cost of labor.
And there's some new programs on the scene, the Safe Routes to School program, for example. Are you going to be able to take advantage of those?
Not only will we take advantage of it, but I actually sit on MDOT's Safe Routes to School committee. And the beautiful thing about Safe Routes to School is that if you make a community safe for an 8-year-old to walk from their house to their school, you've made that community safe for families, for elderly, for everybody.
How are the citizens of your town reacting to these changes? What sort of feedback are you getting?
I was very surprised because I won the election. I just went into office assuming that everyone supported building sidewalks and bike trails. Actually, there's been some hostility. There have been letters to the editor against sidewalks and bike trails, and that caught me off guard. But most people, especially people who grew up in another community that had the benefit of sidewalks or bike-friendly streets, they very much support what we're doing.
We're in Knoxville, Tennessee, talking with Donna Buckman, who's president of Fountain City Connections. What is your organization?
Our organization is set up to promote pedestrian access to Fountain City. Particularly, we're interested in sidewalks and sidewalk ordinances, pedestrian issues in general.
How'd your organization get started?
We came about through a walkability audit that Mark Fenton did when he visited Knoxville about, not quite a year ago. And he really challenged us through an afternoon community presentation to do something in our community. And there was a group of us who felt very strongly about sidewalks in Fountain City, and so we got together and we've been working ever since.
What's the current status of sidewalks here?
Very, very poor. We're standing on one of the very few sidewalks that exists in Fountain City. Fountain City is a community that was annexed about 30 years ago, and we find that a lot of it was established prior to that time, and it wasn't an incorporated city. It didn't have sidewalks. What we've seen is an increase in development in the area, and certainly traffic as more people the houses are growing in the farther north areas, and a lot of through traffic is coming through here. A lot of people live here and work here, and it's very pedestrian unfriendly at this point.
If you did have sidewalks, do you have places you could walk to?
We have incredible places to walk to. We have a park just up here. There's another park at the down there about 3/4 of a mile. We've even thought about a greenway to connect the two. We have your restaurants, we have the grocery stores, we have the banks and the public library, our post office. Everything is within probably a good mile, mile and a quarter. And then, of course, right outside this little commercial corridor, we have a lot of housing. We have residential, family housing, just waiting to be able to access the business area.
What sort of reaction have you gotten when you talk to people about the lack of sidewalks?
Everybody wants sidewalks. Everybody wants to be able to walk. There was an older couple that I've heard of that love to walk and have had to take to the street, and he's in a wheelchair, and have take to the curb, to the ditch, because there's no place for them to go. I remember talking to a woman who said she walked her dog as frightfully as she could to try and get around her neighborhood until they put in the walking path down at the park in Adair Park. And she said walking is very difficult to do. I was at the city county building not too long ago, and there's a big sign that says, getting exercise is as close as walking your dog. But in our community here, it's very difficult because we do not have sidewalks. It's just not safe to fight with the traffic to get anywhere.
What's it like for children in the neighborhood getting to school or wherever?
We have 3 schools. We have an elementary school and a middle school and a high school, all within a stone's throw of where we are. And we are within what they call the parental responsibility zone. It's parents' responsibilities to get the children to school, which means that 30 years ago, the children walked. And now it is absolutely unsafe for the children to walk. So we have long lines of cars at the schools because it's just not safe for our children to walk. And it's not because people are really afraid of people coming and snatching their children. It's because it's unsafe with respect to the traffic and the cars. But this is a great area. There is no reason that we do not have a pedestrian network for our children to be able to get to school. We're constantly hearing about childhood obesity. It's coming from us, from the state. It's coming locally with the Healthy Weight Initiative. They're talking to us about the snacks we can serve in our schools, but we can't let our children walk to school safely, and that would be one of the best ways for them to get exercise on a daily basis.
We're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, talking with Bill Hers. What's the committee you're on?
Okay, I'm active with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee here at the MPO. We have a bicycle and pedestrian plan, and our goal is to make this a bicycle and pedestrian friendly community. And we've made some progress on that, and we have more progress to achieve before we reach our goals.
What are some of the things that the bike ped plan looks at?
Well, we try to find access. For example, in a town like this, we have a university here, so we want to have look at routes that students can use to get to school other than using cars, so they can walk or they can ride their bikes. We have a river here, so we like to provide a place where people can walk and ride along the river in a very scenic atmosphere.
And we're on a state road here. How does it work, trying to work with the city and the state to get things accomplished?
Well, a major 6-lane road like this, we have some issues about getting pedestrians across. And it's a complicated issue because we've been fighting for some time. We have, I'd say, close to 3/4 of a mile here with 3 traffic lights, and we don't have a pedestrian crossing, and we have a major shopping mall on one side, we have a park on one side, we have a sidewalk only on one edge of the road, not on the other. And we've been trying to coordinate getting something done between the different agencies. This is the Alabama Department of Transportation Division 5. We have the city organization, the city engineer, and the city Department of Transportation. And it's an interesting problem to try to get things done. We're heading in the right direction, and we may get a crosswalk at one of these sites soon. At least we're hoping so.
So what are things like in the more historic parts of town that have been around a little longer?
Well, of course, when you get into an urban, I mean, we don't consider us very urban here in Tuscaloosa. We're a city of 75,000 and a greater community of about 170,000. But downtown there are primarily a lot of sidewalks. We don't have bicycle lanes per se. We're getting a new one put in on a reconstruction project. Sidewalks can be bumpy. Sidewalks can have gaps. And there can be schools with not enough sidewalks around them. We have a tendency here to think that children get to school in cars rather than walking or riding, and we're trying to make a change in that thinking too. And I think the new planning, any of the new communities that are being planned in this area, I mean, that's the way the trends are going. They want people to be able to walk and ride and do things right where they live, rather than hopping in a car and going somewhere.
We're in Grand Island, Nebraska, talking with Jim McGann. What is this intersection we're at?
The intersection is the intersection of Federal Highway 281 and State Street in the area of Grand Island that's built up in the last 20 or 30 years, and the traffic is extremely heavy, as you can see from what we've been watching here, and the walking possibilities are not very good.
And why would we expect to see a lot of pedestrians at this particular intersection?
This is the State Street chunk of the Grand Island Trail system that comes in from the east and goes west probably 3 or 4 miles.
And for a trail user trying to get across at this corner, what are they confronted with?
They're taking their lives in their own hands. For one thing, the pedestrian crosswalk isn't marked and is pushed clear out in the traffic lane where the people coming across on State Street and the pedestrians are competing for the same territory as they go across that intersection. And we also are competing with the turning traffic, which backs up. As you can see, it's backed up almost 2 blocks here now. Trying to turn, they get very impatient and try to run pedestrians down as they turn.
What other sort of problems do pedestrians confront trying to get around town here?
The light going across from south to north here, north to south, lasts only 5 seconds. Very short light. Anybody who's not paying attention, it's on the blinking hand before you even get a chance to get started. Plus the point that you start over across on the other corner, the button you have to push for the walk signal is a great distance away from the intersection, and you have to walk across some rough spots to get to that light button to get it turned on. By the time you get back to where you're supposed to be crossing, you've probably wasted your 5 seconds that you need during the walk signal.
Are there other intersections with similar problems?
The intersection at 13th Street, which is about a half a mile down, has a similar problem. It's even worse. And one of the with the having to go a half a mile to get to the button to push it for the walk signal. And during the winter, both of these intersections have snow piled up in front of those, and you have to climb the mountain to get to the button to turn the walk signal on.
So what can be done to improve things here? What would you like to see happen?
Well, if they would move the traffic back and put the line for the traffic to stop back further and allow the pedestrians to go across so that they're not in the traffic lane would be the main thing that could be done to improve it. The other thing would be to lengthen the signals so that the pedestrians have more time to get across, and some way make it more emphatic to these people who are making the right turn and heading down 281. Don't try to run the pedestrians down. Maybe we need to educate drivers that pedestrians do have some rights too, and when the pedestrians are in the crosswalk, the cars aren't supposed to be turning and trying to run them down. There are states I've been in, New Hampshire and Vermont for a couple, that the minute a pedestrian steps in the crosswalk, the traffic stops. Here in Nebraska, you take your life in your own hands because they see the pedestrians as a nuisance rather than having any rights at the intersection.
The intersection a block over here on State, what are the problems a pedestrian might confront there?
The problems are that the right turn arrow and the pedestrian walk signal are on at the same time, which means both groups have a right to that intersection, to that crosswalk, and they put a little yield to pedestrian sign up there, but a lot of people don't even notice it, and they'll turn right into you even though you have the right to be going across the intersection. They obviously think they have the right to turn because you've got the green turn arrow and the white pedestrian walk signal on at the same time. And the only thing that alerts anybody to this situation is the little yield sign that they put up next to the conical sign, not very visible.
We're at Union Station in Washington, D.C., talking with Chuck Flink. What's your connection with the East Coast Greenway Alliance?
I am the chair of the Board of Trustees for the East Coast Greenway Alliance.
And what does the Alliance do?
We're a national organization that's promoting a 2,950-mile trail that goes from Calais, Maine, on the Canadian border, to Key West, Florida. And it is essentially the urban equivalent of the Appalachian Trail. It goes through the major cities along the eastern seaboard: Providence, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, Richmond, Raleigh, etc.
What's the trail going to look like when it's done?
Well, we want 80% of the trail to be off-road, essentially a paved path that can support multiple users. And we're looking for that off-road environment to really attract a lot of different user types, whether they be senior citizens or young children or people with families, whatever. So we're really looking to have that off-road versus on-road. So about 80% of that 2,900 miles hopefully will be off-road one day.
So what have you been doing the last few days here in the Washington area?
Well, we've been sponsoring a Close the Gaps ride, and the purpose of the Close the Gaps ride is to focus on a segment of the trail of the East Coast Greenway that's nearly complete, and there's about a 100-mile segment between Baltimore and Washington that is nearly complete. So we wanted to ride it with some riders and really focus on where the gaps are in that 100-mile segment and work with local agencies to come up with strategic plans for closing those gaps. So that's what we've been doing the last 3 days. We started at the Inner Harbor on Wednesday morning, and we rode about 35 miles to Annapolis. We spent a night in Annapolis, met with the mayor, the chief of staff, focused on gaps there and on gaps in Anne Arundel County. And then last night we stayed in College Park, and we rode in this morning to the district and here to Union Station.
What did you see on that ride? What's there? What are you hoping will be there in the future?
Well, you know, the vast majority of this ride was fantastic because it's really largely an off-road condition, and it's fantastic. There's so much history. I mean, you have two major urban centers, two big cities, but you also have this lovely historic town of Annapolis, built in the 1600s, starting in the 1600s. Lots of history, lots of countryside. We went by the BWI airport. We connected to a lot of small historic towns along the way. And then we also got the urban experience of coming into the district. So there's so many different kinds of landscapes to see, and a lot of it was very, very pleasurable.
And how does it work? You're the Alliance, you're the whole East Coast, but a lot of these are local trails. How does this work?
They're all local trails. They're all built by local people, local groups, and we're the champion of this end-to-end route. And what we're trying to do is to ensure coordination, ensure that things come together. We don't have trails that don't meet, from state to state or area to area. So we're really interested in pulling this all together and being the master coordinator of all of this. That's our role. We're not a trail builder, and we don't own the trails, but we sign agreements with all the local trail development and trail managers to do that.
And what's the connection between the East Coast Greenway route on the designated along local trails and other parts of local trail systems?
That's a great question. I mean, we know that we have a designated route, but we want to make sure that the East Coast Greenway hooks in with all the local trails. I mean, we're sort of this national trail, but we realize, like in the district or in Baltimore, there's lots of local trails that connect to the East Coast Greenway and provide people with access to our trail and to other trails. So it's a great opportunity to champion sort of a main spine, which is the East Coast Greenway, but also connect to and promote other trails in the region. Our goal really is to create a more bikeable and more walkable America, as a result of our actions.
We're in Saratoga Springs, New York, talking with Jeff Olson, who's a partner with Alta Planning. What is Alta Planning?
Alta is a nationally based firm that specializes in bicycle, pedestrian, and trail projects.
You know, what's involved in planning a bike or ped project?
Well, we'll work on everything from an entire city's master plan or a national park or a particular greenway or rail trail corridor. Everything from small-scale projects that might be within one community to entire regional systems.
And what fields of expertise do you bring in to do one of these plans?
Well, it's an interesting question. We everything from engineering, architecture, landscape architecture, urban planning, community planning, and just really working with people to create great projects.
How is the field of ped and bike planning changed over the last 50 years?
It's actually a much newer field than that even, and as one of the co-founders of the Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals, to some extent we're creating an entirely new field that is a hybrid of all those other disciplines, and really it looks at the world from the pedestrian and the bicyclist perspective, and maybe turns transportation inside out. Instead of looking at the biggest infrastructure like the interstates or the railroads, looks at it at a much more human scale.
And frequently the pedestrian or bicycle space is part of the larger right-of-way, which is perhaps dominated by the automobile space. How do you fit in the pedestrian and bike planning with the overall transportation planning?
Well, generally we like to start in the other direction and conceive of the pedestrian and bicycle space as the highest priority and work towards the middle. And then make sure that we're able to accommodate all modes, but to give that higher priority. An example I like to use is a food pyramid where you'd want to think of grain and your basic foods being the ones that require the less energy and generate the most return. Transportation is the same way. It all starts with walking and bicycling and moves on to the other modes of transportation.
And you mentioned the Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals. Is this a rapidly growing profession?
It's incredible. Somewhere in my files is a napkin from the very first meeting. As an architect, I write on a napkin during the meeting, and the acronym APBP came up, and we all decided that was the right name for this thing. At that point, there was 10 people sitting around the table in Washington. There are now hundreds of members all over the country, chapters happening around the world, and I predict in 10 years there'll be thousands and thousands of members, and it's a great thing to see happen.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.